Good morning.
Morning.
Most of the people I know were up very late last night. Did y'all get to bed early? Oh, good. All right. Welcome.
Yep. Welcome, everybody. So I'm Lucas Paratori. I'm on the product team at VMware. I'm joined by...
I'm J.R. Storment, Executive Director at the FinOps Foundation.
And I'm Josh Bauman, Director of Infrastructure Capacity Management at Electronic Arts. And surprisingly, we're here to talk to you about FinOps. We probably wouldn't have guessed. So what we're really going to be focusing on within FinOps is real-time decision making. And how can you understand, looking at your costs, whether it's using CloudHealth, outside of CloudHealth, how can you look at that data and take action as soon as possible? And that is the slide.
Well done.
A quick agenda. So we'll have JR start thinking about the market, talking about what FinOps is. We'll have Josh then take over and going a bit more in his life experience. And then I'll finish off with how you can use CloudHealth to then do some of these actions.
Thank you, sir.
And to you.
How many of you have heard of FinOps as a concept? Oh, great. Okay. Well, it's such a big change from the last few years. That's great to see. So I want to start with this tried and true car analogy, which is, and maybe another question. How many of you have driven an electric car? Okay, most of you. So I have an older i3. It's not like a cool Tesla or anything. But when I got this thing, I realized a really interesting thing when I started to drive, which is they have these little, widgets in the dashboard that shows you how the energy flows out of the battery and back into the battery. And when I first started driving it, you put your foot down heavily on the pedal, and you see the energy flow really quickly out of the battery. And then you lift your foot back up, and it flows heavily back into the battery. And what was interesting about this is that it changed the way I drove straight away, like without any recommendations, without it saying drive more efficiently. But it didn't tell me necessarily to drive more slowly, and it didn't tell me to drive with less power. It just told me that when I needed to use the power, I was using it, and these were the consequences on the battery. So sometimes I'm in a rush, right? I will step down very heavily, and it's fine. But other times, if I'm just taking my time, I tend to kind of gamify the system and see if I can save power. And it's this type of really close, tight feedback loop that really FinOps is really all about, and the concept of it, because we want to be enabling the distributed engineering teams who own the infrastructure, who are working in AWS, whichever cloud provider you're working in, to get that data, that real-time, quick data in a feedback loop, a tight feedback loop, so they can make daily decisions more easily about not just cost, but really about the investment they want to do in order to accelerate innovation or accelerate performance or ship customer innovation and features, et cetera. So FinOps, I feel like I don't need to do this slide because you've all heard about it, but I'll focus on a few areas here. The first one is that FinOps is still very much evolving. Yeah, it's really cool to see everybody raise their hands this year on that. Last year, we probably would have had about half the room, and 3 years ago, we would have had like 3 of you who probably I knew personally. Critically, FinOps is not the slide, and just why I started with the electric car analogy, the slide is not about saving money or spending less. The slide is about how do we get in FinOps as a discipline maximum value out of the investment we're making in cloud spend, to the first bullet. To the second bullet, FinOps isn't really it's not a technology, and in some ways it's not really even a technology discipline. It's a cultural discipline. I hate the word, but it's a business transformation that companies have to go through to essentially get these different teams, engineering teams, working with finance teams, working with the business teams. And to the third point, as I mentioned, to really start to collaborate on data-driven decision-making. And this should be happening. Yeah, there's, if you look at the FinOps principles, there's like a centralized team who's driving enablement and best practices and some of the reporting and whatnot. But FinOps is really happening at the edge, and it should be happening in a run stage practice, which Josh is going to talk about in a bit. I'm laughing because I was telling him on the way in, anybody who says they're in a run stage practice is not really in a run stage practice, but they're pretty far along. It's really driven by engineers at the edge making these decisions as they go. So I'm with the FinOps Foundation. I'm not going to talk about how CloudHealth does this stuff because we are a vendor-neutral, cloud-neutral organization. We've got about 8,000 practitioners who are those doing the work of FinOps as a part of us. And then we've got about 70 vendors, of which CloudHealth is one of those 75, who offer tooling or consultancy to support the practitioners in that. And it's part of the three-legged stool, right, of technology, people, process, et cetera. We focus as an organization, however, on 3 areas that are all in support of the people. We are here to help advance the people, the practitioners, really to help you in your careers through this journey. First is connections and community. A lot of you may have been on our virtual summits. We have our own big event coming up in June in San Diego, FinOps X. Hope you all come to that. And the second is really around growth, education of the people. A lot of training, education, certification, professional development, because one of the big go-gets for us as a team and an organization is to help provide enough skilled people to fill this massive new discipline that's come up. And the third one is standards, best practices, and how to provide templates and patterns in those areas.
Yeah, I was just going to add, and as that slide comes
I was
up,
looking at the wrong slide. Oh my gosh. Boom, go ahead.
Yeah, well, just, adding to that, for those, if anybody was at the FinOps X conference last year, there's another one coming up as well. I'll give you guys a quick shout out for it. But one of the things that's really prevalent there is the connections that you create in the community. And that's something that JR has built here. And even looking around, seeing friendly faces here in Vegas, it just says a lot about the community that's been created.
Cool. I think the thing we've seen come up the most is that people realize they're not alone. A lot of years people doing this practice, like, I'm the only person who's struggling with this, and there's actually thousands of you out there. This was the slide I thought I was talking to, but it turns out there's 2 monitors, and you couldn't see it. But that's us. Rookie mistake. So one of the standards things that we talk about is the FinOps framework, and we're not going to dig into all this. There's way too much words up here, but I wanted to put this up to reference where real-time decision-making fits in here. When I talked about the electric car and sort of, lifting up and down my foot, that was a usage optimization piece, right? Which is further along, enabling engineers to take action. I'm using more or less. When I talked about the fact that I drive a 2016 i3 instead of a 22 Tesla, that's a rate optimization. I'm paying less to get the same out of that, and there's different levers you can pull. But really the core of all this starts on the left side, which is understanding your cloud usage and the costs and getting visibility and benchmarking and tracking that so that you can start to enable real-time decisions so that you can get to the right optimizations as you go. Really critical point, though, this is a cyclical process. This slide is actually terrible because it shows as a linear progression. You want to be constantly going through this. You're often jumping in at the process of understanding your spin, but it's all informing your next steps of optimizing and operating on the back of that.
This kind of goes back to what JR was saying, is that is anybody truly running? And it's once you start running, you realize, wow, I have these opportunities to optimize. I have some governance optimizations. So you have the ability to lost my train of thought. Sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. That was the best.
Well, one thing to add to that too is JR and I were in a session on Monday, and there was a roundtable, and the question was asked, "Where are you at on this stage?" And I raised my hand for the first one, and then I kept my hand up for the second one, and I kept my hand up for the third one.
Maturity stage, right?
From inform, optimize, operate, what maturity are you in? And I think it's a spectrum for everybody here. So this is an ongoing ecosystem, much to your point. I don't think that we end up in one of these buckets, but it's a journey on different parts of your tech stack on where you happen to be in this journey.
For sure, and I should have said the information architecture here from the bottom is a set of capabilities, things you need to do, jobs to be done in FinOps land. Some of these are going to be people, some are going to be process, some are going to be tooling or a combination. They roll up into these domains, the next level up, right, which are essentially the business outcomes. But the top level, to Josh's point, is a life cycle that you're trying to get through quickly, and you're kind of always at different parts of it. Another critical thing is that in FinOps as a function centrally is very much about enablement of the rest of the org to get better at it. It's just like security, right? There's a security team, and everybody's job is security, but you still have a group that's making sure to push out patterns and best practices. I was talking to Merritt Hughes from Deloitte the other day, and she said, it was a great quote, which was, security is job 0, and FinOps is job 0.5, right? Because once you nail that, then you need to really start getting into this aspect of that. So if you want to see more of that, FinOps.org has the domains and capabilities, all those areas. So great to see you all know about FinOps. So how many of you are in a FinOps role, either as a vendor or practitioner or consultant or anything? Okay, a lot of you. So this is the graph of people in the last few years who now list themselves in FinOps on LinkedIn. Kind of amazing inflection point. You all, I think, have been doing, or a lot of you have been doing this work in different ways for years, but we're seeing you come together, right, under an umbrella. A lot of you joining the foundation, getting to know each other. And I shouldn't say this as an Amazon conference, but FinOps now has 10x the mentions of cloud financial management with the analysts, which is the term that Amazon uses out there. And so, I'm excited about this because, again, this is a people discipline, and you're all now able to share the best practices, war stories, and things that advance the discipline. I want to hit a few slides before I pass these gents about some of the data that we've pulled in the last few years from this community of thousands of practitioners. This is the State of FinOps 2022 edition, which I call last year, even though it's this year. We had about 1,000 respondents representing, I think it was 40 to 60 billion of cloud spend, depending on how you cut the mean and median in there. But across all different sizes of spend, right? There was a set of folks in the 5 to 10 million, 10 to 100, a lot of $100 million plus spenders. And in last year's survey, I think we had 15 organizations who were spending over $1 billion a year in their public cloud providers alone. So a big stretch of cloud spend. The pitch, I'm going to do this twice at the end for me to you, is that we want you to contribute to this. The new data collection for the state of FinOps just opened up again. It's a great way to give back to the community. Don't do it for the free t-shirt, but do it to help share, because out of this we get a lot of benchmarking data that we can share with all of you. And that's what we're going to touch on right now a bit. So first thing we found this last year, which was cool to see, was that FinOps is now in every major industry, which is represented by the folks most likely in this room. We saw everybody from energy to healthcare, media, retail, telco. I thought it was really interesting, and I'm curious your all's perspective on the industry. The top industry, though, was not software technology doing FinOps. It was financial services. We had over 200 banks and hedge funds and things join the foundation in the last few years. And why do you think that is? Is it just large spend, regulation?
I think that the regulations have been maturing, and so they've had more opportunity to move to the cloud. What's your thought?
I also think that we're getting more trust in this. We're seeing this from our PII and data that we would normally keep in a data center. Now there's more trust that you can have data securely in the cloud. So I think that's accelerating moving forward.
You were saying at EA you've got on-prem and you've got in-office and you've got in-cloud and all those things, so you're more comfortable moving things over.
Absolutely, yep.
It also just takes one company to do it, and then others see the opportunity, being able to take advantage of it, and others follow suit.
Right, yes. Yeah. So the interesting thing I found that as we work through all these companies in the foundation, we often want, the FinServ people, there's a bunch of them here. I've seen folks from JP Morgan and Fidelity and Goldman Sachs walking around, and they all want to get together and meet people who are from the similar industries, and they do face similar challenges. But really, when we do working groups who are working on best practices around any of these domain capabilities we talked about, everybody kind of has the same challenges, right? And that's why we've tried to put together the capabilities and the domains to be sort of domain not specific, but then there's certain playbooks, like there's a public sector working group that's got 12 or 15 government organizations in the foundation that's done how to do this in the public sector. So there are prescriptive things you need to be doing, but largely everyone is facing a lot of the same challenges. So one of the most interesting data points that's not normally at the top of our presentation of this data, but I pulled out for this talk, is around how and when, or rather when in this case, engineers at the front line see cost data, cost projections. It's a long list. The first one's just, you're in FinOps and you don't know when my engineers are seeing data. You're not really doing FinOps right at that point, which is fine. That's a standing still spot. The second one, which is interesting, architectural reviews, so pre-deployment when you're still planning, that's a great spot to be showing cost data. And we see really, another terrible buzzword, but shift left happening, right, where you want this cost data to get early in the process. Apple was at our FinOps X event in Austin in 22, I think last year or this year, and they gave a talk about developer constraints and the importance of getting cost data to people early. And they said that if you're bringing cost data after you've launched a new application, after you've launched a new service, and saying, here's a bunch of things that we think are inefficient, go fix them, you're kind of asking your engineers to start from scratch, right? This conversation, the workload needs to start early on. The unfortunate thing, I won't go through all these, is that the biggest bucket down toward the bottom, right, is engineers are seeing cost data monthly. Right? That's the idea of giving somebody a credit card and they have unlimited spending capability, but they don't see the bill until a month or 2 months or never later. That's what we don't want to be happening, right? You want to create that feedback loop, and that's what it's all about. How often do you guys do this, or how do you do it at EA?
It's going to be the exact same answer that we had earlier, all of the above.
Okay.
Right? There are workloads where we see things programmatically. There are workloads that we don't know or we're not sure on. So again, there's a maturity and a journey along the process of getting more and more of the data in the real-time state. How do we continue to build on the areas that we have that maturity and make that a larger portion of our spend that we're seeing?
So for the ones who are seeing it more often, why is that? Because there's an executive who cares, because somebody on the bottom is pushing it out? What's the?
Programmatically, depending on the data set, if you have that transparency built in, a lot of times we're still trying to find data with this, and it's just not even exposed. Yeah. So it's continuing down that data transparency journey so that you can add more and more to that.
We were talking on the way in about this concept. I got to give credit to Mike Fuller at Atlassian, who's the co-author of the Cloud FinOps book. He wrote a chapter in the second edition that's all about data in the path of. And critical to this point is you want to put data in the path of the engineers, in the path of executives. You want to have this to the feedback loop in their daily processes so they're not having to go somewhere else or log into a platform or tooling into those things. I see this whole space really as a data problem. And you mentioned trust earlier. The next step once you have the data is getting to trust, right, that the data is accurate, which is often a big hurdle as well for engineering teams. So we talked about how often engineering teams are seeing it, which is a usage optimization. Use the right things, not use less necessarily, but use the right things at the right time for the right outcome. This is all about how often are you managing the rate side, the other side of that coin, your commitment. We call them commitment-based discounts, but this summarizes savings plans, reserved instances. It would be CUDs and other places. These types of offerings from the cloud providers that are not like a enterprise negotiated sort of thing. It's more of a monthly, quarterly, whatever often you're doing a commitment for a 1 to 3 year period, right, to reduce your costs. I'm doing it in 5-year-old terms. You all know FinOps, so savings plans and RIs. And with these, I'm used to explaining these things in a basic format. I now see the industry has caught up. I don't have to actually do it. But with these, really, you want to think about them in being a just-in-time procurement model. Right, so as you're spending up resources, you're making the right commitments at the right time, not ahead of time, and not too late also, because the real challenge, people new to this game often think, I don't want to make commitments too fast into the cloud provider before I know what's happening. I don't want to commit too early, but more likely folks commit too late, and they run too many things on demand for too long, and they have analysis paralysis, so they can't get the teams aligned around this. So the right answer here, going back here, really is further down, right, which is when I'm prompted by automation or I'm doing it, as I have metrics or data alerting reports telling me to do it. I shouldn't be having to go think about these things. In the book, Mike Fuller again talks about metrics-driven cost optimization. You want to have targets and thresholds for when you're reviewing your commitments, not doing what most people do, which is a monthly cadence. And funny, the first time I talked at reInvent, it's my 9th reInvent, was in 2015, and I talked about reserved instances. And it was this nirvana state at the time. Could we get people to make monthly commitments to RIs? Because everyone was doing it like quarterly or yearly, which old procurement cycle. And that's now the norm, which is great. But as things have progressed, the run stage then is really now the walk or crawl stage. And you want to be doing this as your infrastructure changes. How often are you all doing it?
All the time.
Good, okay.
Yeah, it's part of the blood of the system now.
Nice.
So you're not doing that on like every single Friday you make a purchase? It could be a Tuesday this week, a Thursday the next week?
Yeah, it's a ad hoc, on-demand sort of thing, right? But it's not something that we have to spend every day. It's not an overly taxing system. And part of what I'll talk to is how do we continue to evolve and look for better opportunities in that space.
That's not as much as what I see. I see it more typically on a specific day of the week. So it's a bit more unique, at least in the conversations I have. What were you going to say?
You're doing savings plans, convertibles, RIs, all the things?
Yes, all of them. Yep.
Great. Who's doing a mix of all the things? Savings plans, convertibles, reserved instances, everybody? Anybody still buying standard RIs? More than expected.
Zonal capacity? Yes?
Yeah, why? Jeff, go for it.
Frank.
They said the more specific you are, the more discount you get. Yep.
The idea is you need to take all of that and
do the mix.
I know it's going to stay 3 years to pay up front 1 year.
Yep. So he's saying there's 26 different ways, right? So you need to get the mix that's right for you. And savings plans are the easy button because they apply to everything and they're easy to manage. But I talked to a lot of practitioners, spending 9 figures, 100 million plus a year, who've been doing this for years, and they're still buying a lot of standard RIs for certain things because they can get massive discounts on those. So it's a mix, convertible, standard, and the savings plans.
Do like 60, 70% savings plans, 20% convertible, 10% standard RIs. Sweet.
And we've got Rob Martin in the audience, so I got to give him the shout on our favorite expression, which is, well, it depends, though. That mix, it depends, he's going to put it on his tombstone. It's different for everybody for different reasons, right? We have a drinking game at the foundation where every time Rob says it depends, we take a shot. And usually it's water or coffee, but it's fun. So the next area of this, let's talk about anomalies. So anomalies are unexpected changes in spending. They could be negative changes in spending. They're usually increases in spending, but they are unexpected. That's the key thing. And there can be unexpected bad or unexpected good. There's both types of anomalies, but typically your automation, software, tooling, whatever you're using. And sorry, you can buy platforms. A lot of people go their there's native tooling for these things. It doesn't really matter where you're getting it. What I feel really matters is, first, are you able to detect them in a programmatic way? And I hate to use the other buzzwords of AL, AI, ML, all the jazz, but you need to not just saying, is my cost go up? You need to be finding deviations in types of spend, because this is really a needle in a haystack problem. When you've got a 9-figure cloud budget or a 10-figure or however many zeros is there, a $50,000 change in a day may not hit your tracking systems if you're just looking at total spend. It may not seem to matter, but it could really matter in that one account for that one team. So you definitely want to move toward, it's the color here, the orange folks who are saying, yes, we're automatically detecting those things. But then the other side of that is how often, and this is where it gets hard, like put in automation, find these things, great, but are they unexpected good or unexpected bad? This is where the investigation happens. So similarly here, I mean, we made a lot of progress, but people are generally doing it in days. But I've seen cost anomalies come up that are, $50,000, $100,000 a day. So you wait a week on that, that can have a big impact. For a smaller spender, a $5,000 a day impact can be huge. Hours is really the right answer here. Unfortunately, a lot of folks are still working to manage it. Where do you sit with this one?
Between the hours and the days.
Okay.
Sometimes weekends come into play, right? We're not a operations group, so if something happens on a Saturday, that's probably a pretty bad thing that we probably won't see that until Monday. So yeah, but a lot of times we're able to catch things in the hours time frame too.
And are you putting them into a JIRA system, or how are you notifying folks and getting the investigations happening?
Yell at them on Slack.
Oh,
Slack. A lot of things, right? Help. We have those relationships built with those teams, right? So we're going to find those account owners or those responsible, and doing kind of an emergency, hey, what are you doing here, sort of thing. You want to get to the source as fast as you possibly can.
For sure.
So not necessarily going through a workflow system.
Perfect. Cool. So I realized I'm over on time, so I'm going to pass these gentlemen. Again, my ask is please go fill this out. It's going to take you 20 minutes. It's a meaty survey with 60 questions, but it's all about this type of data that helps you and your fellow practitioners understand. And more importantly, this year, we tied everything in this survey to capabilities in the framework, so we can benchmark. We can have you benchmark how often you should be checking these things, what your rates of coverage should be, all these different capabilities. So please, if you do nothing else involved with the foundation, fill this out so we can help share more information back next year. With that, let me pass to you.
Okay, so first I have a question for everybody. I don't drive an electric car, so I don't have that feedback mechanism that JR does, but who likes tacos here? I'm from Austin, Texas. We love tacos here. And one of the things that we have as a feedback loop in our Slack channels, if you do something good and you post it, your kudos is a taco emoticon in Slack. So you're always looking for those taco emoticons and saying things go. So you're going to see that theme throughout the presentation here. Think about tacos being my feedback mechanism, my feedback loop, just like your electric car there. So get all the tacos. That's what you're really going for here. The feedback loop here, one of the things that we're going to talk about is an example of where I've been able to do that in our business and where we can search for more opportunities, like the stuff that Lucas will present to us here going forward. So, but first, before you're able to have that idea and have that feedback mechanism loop, you've got to be able to be put in a position for success. And I'm going to give a little bit of my history here about how I've been able to put myself in a position of success here. The first way of my capabilities here is I'm an idea connector. And just like coming to AWS, and I think a lot of what JR was saying earlier about raising your hands of who's heard of FinOps, when I came 4 years ago, it was a needle in a haystack to find people to talk to and to really share stories about and what my specific mission was. I'm not an engineer. I'm not going to a lot of the tracks that are here, but I want to optimize the workflow. So I was an idea connector and trying to take the idea from one group and over to another group. I'm also, in that same way, a super node, right, of being in a central place. I've got horizontal connections throughout all of my business internally, and now externally through the FinOps Foundation. It's one of the things that I've been able to really, take advantage of in the FinOps Foundation is using that super node to connect with other folks and everybody in the room for finding those new ideas. But ultimately, I'm just trying to make things better, right? So our group is called Infrastructure Optimization. It kind of plays right in with making things better.
Josh is talking about like what he sees as his personal traits, but these are perfect central FinOps teams, like values and principles, right? Because you are an enablement team. There is some cheerleading and evangelism, but there's also just connecting the right people who can help with the right things at the right time. So it's important when we talk about it not being a technical discipline to remember that you've got to get the people together to share the knowledge, even in your own organization.
Yeah, and so as a FinOps practitioner, what makes me successful then? So, how do you find the idea? What do you do once you have that idea? It's great to find that idea with being a supernode and things like that. But I think it takes three things as a FinOps champion in order to make yourself successful in the company. And those are technical language, analytical mindset, and the ability to really sell your ideas in the organization. You can have the best idea, but if you can't get your organization to take advantage of it, that's not really that great of a thing. So what my journey was to get that, because you can't go to college right now and get a FinOps degree. We're working towards that education over time, but it certainly didn't exist 20 years ago when I went to school. So when you're looking at this industry and how do you find these traits? Well, my journey, first I started off, I got a computer science degree from Trinity University way back a long time ago, and my undergrad was mathematics, which, let's go with some tacos here. That gave me some technical language background, ability to speak to engineers, and also have that analytical mindset as well. My next stop on the journey was at a company we're probably all familiar with, is Rackspace, selling servers, dedicated hosting environments, almost 20 years ago. So that allowed me to really get my selling ideas and still continue that path of understanding technical lingo there. My next stop on my journey was at a water park in Texas called Schlitterbahn. And with that, we were commercial real estate development. We were trying to do performance on creating new commercial opportunities for us, new parks and stuff like that, which again helped me with my analytical mindset and selling my ideas here. Next stop, I went to Texas, got my MBA, so hook 'em for everybody that's UT Austin here. And that really, again, then, sorry for that, helped me with my analytical mindset and really got me to being proficient from an analytical mindset perspective. First job while I was going through my school, I also happened to work for a financial services company as well called Thrivent, which sells life insurance policies, retirement plans, et cetera, very similar to a lot of the other companies that are in this space and operating very well. And that helped get my proficiency around selling ideas, again, being in a commissions-based sales role. Finally, my last stop is at EA, and where I am today currently. And I've been part of the IT organization for a very long time, and so that really got my proficiency up to the technical.
A pop-up.
There's an error on the screen, AV folks. Not up here, luckily. Thank you.
There we go. Perfect. All right, so now I've got my proficiency. So let's talk about an idea back to how this roadmap has gone and why now having real-time feedback loops is so important. My story is about reserved instances and savings plans, a lot of what JR has brought up before, and starts back in 2016. In 2016, this was the AWS came out with convertible reserved instances for the first time. And that was something that we were able to take advantage of pretty quickly through all those analytical mindset, technical capabilities, and being able to sell my ideas there. Lots of tacos. The result there was we increased our coverage from 30% to 70%. We were able to generate multitude of savings there from a perspective there. It limited our risk going from standard RIs to convertible RIs. That allowed us to have a higher percentage coverage there. And it maintained our flexibility there from that perspective. At the time in 2016, I was very much in the same school of thought of what JR was talking about earlier and what Lucas was talking about, is that we were looking at things, monthly, maybe sometimes not even monthly, but quarterly and things like that. You could get away with that at the time. There really wasn't a need for a feedback mechanism loop at that point. Let's fast forward. Next stop on the journey is in 2019 with the invention or introduction of savings plans. And savings plans sound great, right? I'm a huge fan. We have a large percentage of savings plans. Potential to increase our coverage by a lot. Again, limited our risk as well, which is a fantastic thing. However, you see, there was a potential possibility that was going to limit our flexibility there. And it's not anything to do with the instruments itself, right? Where the issue came from was specifically on how that data was shown to my engineers. And when I started to look into savings plans and look at the levels that you now have with standard and convertible and now savings plans, what you ended up happening from a native tooling perspective is you're not exactly sure what rate is being charged at any one time for the EC2 that you're using at that particular place. I was already in a state where I was giving complicated rates based on a standard RI or convertible RI or an on-demand, and you could get to a place where you almost had infinite permutations on what your rate would be at the end of the month. And that was a blocker for me with AWS as well, and said, well, okay, let's put our heads together. It was AWS ProServe and us, and we said, okay, how do we do this? How do we maintain our flexibility? How do we limit our risk? But mainly that flexibility and that feedback mechanism. How do I not add more complexity to a problem that's already causing me issue with real time? And this is now a feedback loop mechanism that I need. Our solution was this, to build with ProServe a custom cur that added columns to it. And the way our solution works is that we look at on-demand, and I've taken the discounts away completely from, is it a savings plan? Is it an R? Is it those 26 different ways that you can buy an RI or savings plan today? None of that matters to the engineer or any of the people consuming the resources at the end of the day. It's just list price minus a discount. And what that's allowed me to do is every rate now is a standard fixed percentage discount off of the list price. And it's been that way for 18 months now. So you can plan against it. You can know what your actuals come in at. There's no variance there. You're now looking at your usage, and so you can see that real-time feedback mechanism loop of what you're being charged without any variability. That also allows me to centralize all the discounts, right? I manage EA as a fleet. I don't have to manage 250 to 500 different providers, end user accounters, and see what their risk profile is, and if they're trying to manipulate an internal shell game perspective there. So it's centralized our discounts. And then I've quarantined the variability to where I own that margin internally from my perspective. There's no margin on the individual teams. They just know what their rate is, and it goes from there. It's given the engineer the ability to move quicker and through a feedback mechanism loop that has allowed us to take complexity out of the pricing stuff there.
So this is a big change from how people did it a few years ago. I mean, you're saying instead of like just letting the discounts fall where they land, you're normalizing them, making more equitable. And I'm just curious as a straw poll, I mean, how many of you are, well, let's say, how many of you are just letting the discounts land wherever they land currently? Oh, not that many, okay. How many are doing some form of second set of books to move them around before you charge them back, show them back? Not that many. So people are in between those two, I guess? Bit of both, okay.
I think we're getting there, right? Like This was back in 2019, and it took me a year to get that implemented with my finance team. And I'm seeing a lot of it here at reInvent. I'm seeing solutions in the marketplace that didn't exist in 2020 to solve this problem. So it's good to see the encouragement, and I see that it built into the tooling now instead of me having to invent it like I did back in 2020. So lessons learned here, right? You always want to be able to maintain flexibility going forward, right? Like, I bet you there's announcements happening right now that I'm not aware of that are going to change the way that I do business going forward. And we want that. We want that innovation. We want to continue to grow here. The other lesson there is you got to build consensus internally, right? And it's a journey, right? But having your finance partners are essential. Having your engineers are essential. But this is part of that selling your idea internally. You have to be able to maintain those relationships. And finally, I really like the holistic price management of looking at EA is not 250 different businesses that happen to have different accounts. It's all of us in this together. So how do we manage the business 100% together? And with that, I'm going to hand over here to Lucas to go through next, helping me find other ways to have real-time feedback mechanism loops beyond this specific example.
Yeah, and I think that one thing to add to this as well, one of the strengths is the predictability. That engineers know that this is going to be the cost, this is their compute cost, and if an RI floats over from another subscription this today and then doesn't tomorrow, that is going to be somewhat hidden, and they'll still be able to have that consistent cost prior day and current day. So getting a little bit into VMware Aria. So first, you're seeing the word Aria, hearing Aria cost. CloudHealth has been repackaged, built into a new product suite called VMware Aria, and CloudHealth is specifically called Aria Cost. So there are now 3 products within it. There's VMware Aria Cost, powered by CloudHealth, kept the CloudHealth in there. We have VMware Aria Operations, so that is VROps, if you're familiar with that. And then VMware Aria Automation is like VRA. So pretty similar experience in terms of the past products you had, but where it really takes it to the next level is the integration between these. And for me, on the tech side, I'm really excited about the technology we're going to start being able to take advantage of. And that's going to be done by being connected through things like Aria guardrails. So this is the policy engine to help you manage your on-prem and public cloud environment. We also will do that through their migration assessment tool for both moving from on-prem to public cloud, or potentially within AWS to probably never going to move to another cloud, but if you were considering it, AWS to another cloud. And then lastly is the business insights. So being able to get that data and being able to look at, if I have an application that spans both public and private cloud, I want to be able to see what that true application cost is, not just including your cloud costs. So this product suite will help you be able to do that. And underneath it, the really exciting technology, and I'm going to be getting it into in some of the new features we have, is around our event-driven asset collection. Everything's got to have a trendy. EDS is our new abbreviation, have to have an abbreviation. And that really goes at the root of real-time decision-making and wanting to get data to yourself as fast as possible. So some Vanity Metrics, really proud of these. The first one is managing over $20 billion in annual cloud spend. So that's across multiple public clouds. We also process over 1.2 billion cloud resources per day. So that's going to be something we'll be getting into, and we're expecting that to only grow as we expand into this new event asset collection. And then lastly, our most proud metrics. We have over 20,000 customers globally. Many of those are being driven through the channel, so through partners like the Rackspaces, Accentures, Deloitte's of the world, and then others are just we're working directly through with those customers. And then the FinOps Foundation. So we're very closely aligned with the FinOps Foundation. We were the first premier member to join. We have somebody on the governing board. I sit on the Technical Advisory Council. We have over 100 certified FOCP, certified professionals, and then 1 certified pro. I am that certified pro. And yeah, thank you, Frank. We have some others present. Great course. Shout out anybody interested in doing it. Very, very valuable. Make a lot of friends. And then we also were the gold sponsor and scholarship sponsors of the FinOps X conference that was back in June.
I want to give Lucas individually a shout out, though, because he sits on the Technical Advisory Council, not from appointment, but he actually just won an election. He was one of 6 folks who got elected by the community to get on the Technical Advisory Council. We haven't officially announced that, so this is the first recorded thing. The other 5 you'll have to wait to hear about. But it was a mix of practitioners and vendors and consultants, and he was one of the ones chosen. But I want to give him a personal shout out because he's doing the right thing in the foundation, which is we have vendors involved, we have consultants involved. There's 75 now, and CloudHealth, thank you for being one of the first to join and be a part of supporting the community. But he comes in and he shares best practice. He doesn't talk about. We don't let him talk about CloudHealth in the community. This is their event, so he can talk about what he wants. But in the community, he's helping share their knowledge and stories, and helping to build open billing framework, and helping to contribute on the container methodology. So you've been a great partner in that, as an individual in the large organization. So thank you.
You've led a great thing.
Don't ever do these slides in one of our events.
Thanks for allowing me to use you as one of my idea connectors and part of my Supernode network.
Happy to be there. Happy to help. Thanks, JR. All right. And now into how CloudHealth actually does it. So a lot of blur out here, but imagine this is an asset reporter table with all of your resources. So this is something that we don't actually just rely on the CUR. We collect this data through the Describe API calls. We collect it every 15 or so minutes, and we put this into the platform across all regions, across all clouds. And pretty simple, you have an inventory. Where it then starts to become powerful is around cost allocation. So when you think about you have an EBS volume and a EC2 instance, you allocate that EC2 instance, we're associating the volumes, the disks, the snapshots, all those on the back end, so that when you allocate that EC2 instance, the snapshot, the disk, all those will follow as well. Okay. And then in terms of customizing the cost, so now we've collected your costs, now we want to start manipulating it. Maybe you have old resources that were launched that you didn't have a chance to add any tagging to. Something you can use CloudHealth for is to push out custom tags, whether it's to add it to deleted ones, or maybe you want to correct any tagging issues that you have, that your CloudFormation, you have enough scripts that manage everything within the cloud. If you had changes go out to your AWS console, maybe those CloudFormation scripts would overwrite it. So this is a way for you to have another set of data that you manage within CloudHealth that isn't going to be competing with any of those scripts. We also have the ability for you to insert charges. So for those business units and those teams where maybe for you guys, if you manage your RIs centrally, maybe you then want to charge back every month. You know what, we'll give you a 10% discount on demand, but we are going to do a $500 charge on the first of every month as this recurring fee. So some sort of upcharge to be able to provide your service. And then we also have the ability to create policies to be able to alert you on those. And that's, I think, where the real-time decision-making becomes the most important. Because, yeah, logging into the platform, it's great to see those things, but I want to work on writing code. I want to do what I want to do and not have to worry about logging in. And I want to be alerted on these things. So we have a policy engine that can proactively alert you based on some sort of threshold that you set, whether it's for resources or for costs. So now we have the costs. We've talked about how you can be alerted. How do you allocate those? So you can do that in a few different ways. The first is for costs like a support cost, a shared cost, where you may want to say, I'll allocate all of my support costs based on compute, EC2 compute. I know that a majority of the usage our support, that is taking it is from support. Let's allocate it that way. Or maybe you have things like transfer costs that you don't have a good way to allocate. You could also allocate those proportionate to some sort of spend. And then lastly, we have containers. So you could create some sort of business rules, business logic off of CPU memory and be able to help charge back those containers. Anomalies. So this is an area that we're pretty excited about our investment in and what we've been able to bring. And we have a multi-cloud anomaly detection feature that alerts for both increases and decreases. So that was something you mentioned, JR, earlier on, that anomalies can be both increases and decreases. And that's something that we feel really strongly about. And a lot of time, anomalies, the spikes, are the things that catch the attention. But yeah, that's great. But what about application issues? What happens if you had an outage and you want to be able to look into those? This is the type of tool that would help alert you on those. We analyze multiple times a day, and we also will push out those alerts too as well, which I think is really the big gap. Your presentation, your slide shows people looking at it hourly. I mean, we want people to be looking at it in minutes. Alert is generated, push people to the platform, push a Slack notification, get that in the hands of the engineers as fast as possible. We're looking at the last 13 months. We also have the ability for users to provide feedback. So this was really something that's important as we talk to some of our customers on how they were using other solutions, is they know their environment better than we can. We have the smartest AI ML algorithms in the world, predictability, they're still going to know it better than we will. So you have the ability to help train it and say, yes, this was an anomaly, check. No, this wasn't, but let us know the next time this happens. So that's one of the algorithms supporting our anomaly detection feature, is that user training. And then lastly, we support revealing the root cause. So for a specific anomaly, you can then drill in and say, all right, these are the specific resources that helped identify or help trigger that anomaly. So now in terms of reporting to the business. So anomalies, feel good, check those off. Now let's do that show back, that charge back. Let's get this cost in the hands of the engineers and get it in their hands as soon as possible. So CloudHealth has a rich reporting dashboard. You can look at the last 13 months active. We can look at the last up to 24 months if you've been a customer. We also have forecasting that you can look, and where forecasting can become really powerful isn't necessarily at the aggregate spend. We see a lot of the forecasting value coming at the application level, filtering to just your cost relative to that application, and then being able to track the growth of just that specific application and forecast that. And then lastly, CloudHealth has budgeting. So you have the ability at not just things like at an account level, but at a perspective. So in CloudHealth, we have this feature called perspectives, and that's our grouping mechanism. So if you are using some sort of application tag on your resources, you then create an application perspective. And so all of your resources where app equals foo will show up, and then you can create a budget just for that specific perspective group. So if you have some applications that are really small with one very large one, those small applications may be hidden by cost increases by that large one. So you have the ability to create these budgets at a really granular basis so that the large costs may not overshadow the spikes. And button mark. And now, and taking it to the next level is show back now for optimization. So it's great, yeah, this is how much money we have and its costs, but what should I do with that information? This is that feedback loop, or that wheel of inform, optimize, operate, where you see you spent a lot, you make an improvement, you think you're at a run phase, and then you make some more changes and you realize, wow, I have all these other opportunities to save. So really going back to that optimization while marrying that inform phase. And yeah, that is what we have going on at CloudHealth. So quick call to action, come visit booth 1604. I'll be there after this session to geek out and talk through some of these things. We'd love to see you there.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.